So welcome to my first official YouTube video. I thought I'd go through and explain the process of how I apply and colour scar wax. That includes the application of blood as well. I've had a couple of people ask me about how I do it, how I smooth edges and things like that, so I thought what better way to do that than share it in a video. So I'll go through the products I use. Nye Nose Scar Wax, nothing too special. This is just the fair skin colour. Petroleum jelly. I've used several things to kind of smooth wax out. This is generally what I use petroleum jelly for. This is, these are obviously not unique techniques. I've watched other videos where people have used hand lotion or baby oil or any kind of lubricant basically to smooth wax out. Sometimes I use Lacas Pawpaw Ointment, which I think is a product specific to Australia, but I'm pretty sure you can buy this online now. So the actual base for both of these products is petroleum jelly. So I mean, you're basically using petroleum jelly. The tools I use for smoothing wax out, this is just an artist's spatula. This is probably my most favorite of all the tools I use, especially for the kind of smoothing part. You can buy different artist spatulas. This is a straight edge. You can also buy spatulas that sort of taper at the tip here as well. These tools here, I think you can pick most of these up on eBay these days for about sort of $10 or $15 each. These are, they're advertised as sculpting tools, they're advertised as dental tools as well. So this one here is pretty common sort of sculpting tool. It's just got a flat kind of scoop at one end and then another scoop at this end, but this one obviously tapers to a point, more like an arrow point. I generally use this just to scoop kind of wax out of the container. Depending on how much I need, I'll use either end. This one here, this is pretty much what I use to do most of the sculpting work. So it has a kind of a little sort of rounded scoop at one end, and then the opposite end there's a kind of fine pointed tip. So this is generally what I use to kind of like scratch into the wax to create the scar. And then depending on the level of detail, if I need really fine detail, I'll use a tool like this. This is just a sort of generic sculpting tool again, with a fine needle point. For colouring, once I've done that, I use Skin Illustrator palettes. This one's by PPI Premier Products. So this is their flesh tone palette, and you can probably see from the kind of wear and tear the ones that I generally use in my makeups. Occasionally I'll use this one here, which is the rose adjuster. So depending on what part of the hand I use, if it's the palm where there's generally sort of more pinky spots, I'll use a wash of this beforehand, but I'll go through and sort of describe this in detail a bit more later on. And then the SFX palette. So you should also be able to tell from this palette the colours that I use more commonly. Obviously the two blood tones, so this is just regular blood tone and age blood tone. Yeah, so that's it for that palette. How I apply those paints is generally one of two ways. This is what they call a chip brush. The end of this I've actually cut off with a pair of scissors. This technique's not new either, so if you search chip brush technique and potentially Skin Illustrator on YouTube online, you'll find various kind of people giving examples of how to use this. But what you tend to do is put a bit of alcohol in the palette, swish the kind of paintbrush around, and then use the end of this to kind of flick paint or speckle paint across the kind of wax area. You can build it up in layers as well. That's the good thing about this technique. But I suppose it's almost like the cheaper version of buying an airbrush, basically. The speckle that comes out of the end can be kind of quite harsh sometimes, so you need to watch that, either hold it away from your hand a little bit more, but I'll go into that in more detail later. The other things I use are just fine point artist brushes, so this is to kind of get into the grooves and paint in blood detail and depth and things like that. So I've just got a variety of those. This is a nail art brush that you can buy online now for I think about $1 or 50 cents even. I think you can even get these in sets now for about $3 or $4. So I've just got a variety of brushes that I use. There's nothing sort of too special in there. There is one brush I have in my collection which I actually use to smooth wax out. Sorry, I've got two brushes in my collection that do that. One's a bit wet at the moment, but this one here. So when I go back in and kind of create some of the creases and indents in the wax to kind of mimic the ones in my hand, I'll go back over with a brush to sort of soften those up. There's a great tutorial online by Stuart Bray who creates cuts using wax, and he kind of explains his technique really well, how to sort of soften the line work that you put back into wax. So the only other thing kind of remaining really is just the blood at the end. So once I've created the wound, my kind of blood of choice, Mouldlife Age Blood, Kensington Gore. They make two other colours as well, but this is my favourite, and favourite with lots of friends of mine that are into special effects. And just so it looks real once you apply it, and this blood has a tendency to bead because it's water-based, so if you put it on something like wax or silicone or something like that, it'll bead and look kind of slightly artificial. So if you put in, this is just a little container of normal dishwashing detergent. If you put a couple of drops in into the blood, this will help sort of disperse the blood a lot more and make it look realistic.